Hello everybody, Necromancer for Kids here once again. This time Becky with a deck profile. This one is titled Wind Warriors for reasons that will become very obvious very soon. I always liked the wind attribute, but couldn't really think of a way to properly make a deck until I think I came up with this concept recently, utilizing warrior monsters with Reinforce of the Army. And there's a few wind warriors that are pretty useful, the ones that we use in this deck anyway. So this deck in a way works like Chaos Warriors, although it's a bit more based off of getting value on your own cards than it is about just straight up overrunning the opponent's own cards. With that, let me start the deck profile. We have 2 Bird Face in the deck, a level 4 Wind, with when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Harpie Lady from your deck to your hand. It has 1600, pretty decent stats, can run over a lot of things in GOAT format, and saves itself even if it gets flipped by Book of Moon and such. Doesn't die to Tsukuyomi. And when it dies, we can search out a Cyper Harpie Lady, which is a level 4 wind with 1800 attack, 1300 defense. So having a 1600 attack monster that floats into 1800 is one of the reasons that we're running Birdface. But because we can only play 3 targets, and because of space in the deck in general, I only play 2 Birdface. Then to search, we have 2 Cyber Harpie Lady and 1 Harpie Lady 1. Harpie Lady 1 is actually pretty good. Besides being a 1600 on her own and being searchable with some cards I'll show you in a second, including Birdface, it can pretty much boost your whole team and allow you to get that extra damage in for game. So in some situations, it's even better than adding a Cyber Harpie Lady. Then we have a DD Warrior Lady, of course, because she's a warrior, and Exiled Force. We're running those because we have 2 Reinforced in the Army. We have 2 Flying Kamakiri number 1. It is the Giant Rat or Mystic Tomato for the Wind attribute. You can either grab itself, or Harpie Lady 1, or some other cards. We're running 1 Sandgan, searches pretty much everything in the deck except for a couple of cards. Instead of Swordsman level 2, we're using Sasuke Samurai because it's searchable with Kamakiri, and because it's a wind. It is basically the same, except that it has 500 attack and 800 defense. And it still has the same effect if it attacks a face down monster. Destroy that monster before it gets flipped. Then we're playing 2 copies of Sasuke Samurai number 4. A level 4 wind with 1200. Can't be taken out by Tsukuyomi. If this card battles a monster, toss a coin and call heads or tails before damage calculation. If you call it right, destroy the opponent's monster with this effect. So if the opponent has a face down monster and you call the correct facing with this effect, then you destroy it without it getting its flip effect. That's one of the major reasons to play this card. Also, it's really great for attacking into chaos monsters, especially because the opponents like to put them into defense mode a lot, so you're not risking this card getting destroyed. Also helps you to get over spies potentially and things like that. This works both ways as well, so if the opponent tries to attack into it, they'll end up getting destroyed. So sometimes what you'll want to do is just leave it there in attack mode without attacking first into the opponent's monster and let them attack into you, because if you attack into them and you lose the flip, you take damage, then they get to attack you directly on their turn. Versus if they attack you with their monster and you get the right flip, it destroys the monster, or you save yourself 1200 life points. Then they might even attack it with all their monsters, and all their monsters end up getting destroyed by this if you get lucky. I've had people that automatically quit the game as soon as I called right on this effect, and it's just hilarious and great. Then one of our payoffs or the major payoff for playing a wind deck is Sylphied, a level 4 wind with 1700 attack, 700 defense. Can't be normal summoned or set. Can only be special summoned by removing play 1 wind in your graveyard. When this card is destroyed as a result of battle and sent to the graveyard, your opponent discards 1 card at random from their hand. So it's decent for just putting out to get aggressive on the opponent, and you can get a boost from Harpie Lady to get to 2000 attack. I've done that quite a few times with this. I did play 3 for quite a while, but it just gets bricky, and you might not always have the monsters engrave. There's some ways that you could sort of mitigate that if you wanted to, but I think 2 works personally. And then we're playing Tribe Infecting Virus just because it's good for getting rid of the opponent's monsters, and we want to keep advantage as much as we can. We have all these cards that can generate advantage. Sangan, Flying Kamakiri, Birdface, and potentially even Sasuke Samurai number 4 can generate advantage. And then we also have 1 copy of Twin-Headed Behemoth because it's searchable by Flying Kamakiri and Sangan, and essentially it's a floater. 1500 attack, 1200 defense. During end phase, this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed in the field and sent there this turn. You can special summon it. Let's attack and defense become 1000. Then, of course, we're playing Trinity, Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, Power Greed, Heavy Storm, Lightning Vortex, Mystical Space Typhoon, Double Nomadic Crossout, Premature Burial, again the 2 reinforcing the army, 1 Smashing Ground because we want to get rid of walls like Spy and the opponent's Chaos Monsters, which usually have higher attack. Pretty much anything that's going to keep us from attacking with our monsters that have lower attack. Then we have Snatch Steal, of course, pretty self-explanatory. 1 Call the Haunted. If you wanted to play a 3rd Sylphied in this deck, I would probably get rid of the Call the Haunted because you're not going to have as many cards in the graveyard to revive with it. Although it has been, even in the build that had 3, it didn't necessarily brick, but I think you want to mitigate the amount of times that can happen. We're also running 1 compulsory evacuation device. I'm still testing this out, but trying this out instead of something like Book of Moon, which isn't very good against all the flip monsters that people play. This way you can just return their flips to their hand, or save your own monster from destruction or removal, like Sasuke Samurai number 4. Then we have Dust Tornado, 1 copy to help get rid of back row, Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, and this is where, again, it's kind of like a Chaos Warrior deck. We're playing 3 Sakuretsu Armor and 1 Widespread Ruin, again to just help us keep the advantage over the opponent, clear the way for our monsters to get in, and pretty much you want to use these especially on the opponent's Chaos Monsters, or of course anything that's going to be higher attack than your Cyber Harpie Lady. And of course we have 1 Torrential Tribute. Again, the way that you want to play this is for value. Try to beat down the opponent's monsters as much as possible and get advantage off of yours, then trade off their monsters, like with Lightning Vortex, get rid of their whole field, set up again against them. That's pretty much the idea. Some other considerations for the deck is, if you wanted to, you could play Lady Ninja Yay in the side against decks that are very back row dependent. Basically, you slack this down and then the opponent has to answer it, or they're not going to have anything on the board for you to retaliate against them with. Sasuke Samurai is just a good target with Rhoda if you need to get rid of spies and such. Again, you could use a 3rd Sasuke Samurai number 4 for the same reason. Sinister Serpent if your opponent is playing discard heavy. You could side Harpie's Hunting Ground if you wanted to. I haven't really tested it out. I wouldn't really recommend it either because you're not a heavy Harpie Lady deck, and you actually only have a couple of Winged Beasts in the deck. So it's really not gonna help you very much. But if you did go a stronger Harpie Lady theme, you could go for that. I wouldn't main deck it just because you have to destroy a spell or trap with its effect. It's not optional, but that's something to keep in mind. I usually side another Smashing Ground when the opponent is running Spy and stuff like that. Another Compulsory for things like Goat Control and very heavy Foot decks. A 3 Royal Decree for burn decks and ones that are just rogue decks that end up using their back row a lot, or maybe like skill drain decks as well. And another Widespread Ruin because you never know, if the opponent has a lot of chainables, you might not want to use Dust Tornado, for instance. And also Widespread Ruin is better against decks that use things like King Dragon because Sakuretsu Armor does not work against it. With that is the deck profile. I tried out some other versions of the deck, like where I use Solemn and other things, but this is what I ultimately went with. Hopefully you guys like the deck, and let me know what you think, and if you have any ideas for your own decks. I also, really quickly, I kind of threw out a challenge to Skilled Brown Magician to see if he could do a deck profile like this one, a Wind Warrior deck. I know you could possibly argue that this maybe isn't a quote-unquote Wind Warrior deck, but I think that there's enough warriors and there's enough Wind Warriors, the good ones anyway, that we're using, that I think it qualifies. Anyway, be sure to check out his deck when he posts that. And with that, thank you guys very much. Have a good night.